Good morning and welcome, everyone. It's our pleasure to host this quarterly Waste Site Cleanup Advisory Committee meeting. We're joined by our advisory committee members, MassDEP staff, LSPs, consultants, special guests, and the public. My name is Millie Garcia Serrano, Assistant Commissioner for the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup. And as you know, our advisory committee meeting meets on a quarterly basis. And this is the meeting where we get together and MassDEP seeks to inform as we solicit comments, receive input and comments from all of you all regarding waste site cleanup matters. Whether it's guidance, policies, or 21E program development, we really welcome your feedback. Together with our monthly Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup office hours, that's a virtual meeting that happens every month. These are the forums that provide an opportunity for parties to meet with the Bureau staff and also exchange information and feedback. But most importantly, really, it provides an opportunity for us to listen and respond to your concerns, questions, and receive the direction that we're always seeking. So if you're new to this forum, we want to welcome you and thank you for being here today. We have a packed agenda, therefore we're going to honor the allotted times and end promptly at 11 o'clock in the morning. Thanks to all the presenters, including MassDEP staff, our LSP board, the LSP Association, and also New England Wildlife Today for their presentations today. Slide number 3, please. Here's the agenda. It's part 1 of 2. And if any advisor or member of the public has any comments on this particular agenda, please let me know. Otherwise, we will adopt it and kick off the meeting. Hearing none, we're going to move forward and lead with the administrative updates. Next slide, please. All right, so legislative updates. At this time, all of the legislation, including MassReady and all of the PFAS-related legislative bills, they're still under review by our legislature, so we continue to track these. I just want to remind folks that our current legislative session will be ending on July 31st, 2026. And just as a side note, although it doesn't directly affect our bureau, but other bureaus are watching it more closely, we understand that today the House is planning to debate the energy affordability bill. So MassDEP is also tracking this particular bill. On the MassDEP budget side, I wanted to ensure that we talk a little bit about that. Governor Healey's proposed budget sets out to balance the impacts of federal cuts and state priorities while ensuring that MassDEP can continue our critical programming across the state. The governor's budget funds MassDEP at $82.1 million, which is $2.6 million, approximately 3% less than last year's figure. However, between the state budget, the federal budget, which the cuts were not as severe as we anticipated, and MassDEP staff reductions due to retirement, MassDEP will have the funding that we need to deliver the services that we provide. So that's the great news. And I just wanted to, by way of background, some folks often ask, what is the MassDEP current cap? This is for personnel. So our current cap is 789 employees, and we expect to be at that particular number by early March due to attrition. In addition, also, we anticipate that we will be holding steady at that level thereafter. Staff changes. Recent retirements have resulted in big staffing changes in the Central and Northeast region, so we wanted to acknowledge those. In Central region, Tony Korpaska retired after many years of exemplary public service, and he was leading the ER section program in Central Region. So we want to thank him for his great service so many years. John Boursier is now serving as the acting ER chief, and we really, truly appreciate his service. So thank you, John. In Northeast Region, Nero, our superstar Joanne Fagan retired. Many of y'all, I'm sure, know her and just collaborated with her in so many projects, as well as Kyle McAfee. So we were really sad to see them go. But we are grateful to the Nero management for getting in front of these losses. And now Tiffany Duell is the new acting chief of the site management and brownfields section, as well as Andrew Friedman is the section chief for the risk reduction and data management section. So we want to join them, support them, and really truly thank them for stepping into these important roles. Next slide. We'll touch on the Brownfields program for a moment. Next slide, please. So without a doubt, the site cleanup program continues to focus on collaboration and teamwork, and we really truly believe that that's the key element to our success implementing the Brownfields program in the state of Massachusetts. Many thanks to David Foss, Abby Anderson, and all of the regional coordinators. And as already noted, in January 2026, Tiffany was appointed to serve as the Nero's Brownfields coordinator. So that's really great. We have a full team on board to continue to do all that dedicated work that needs to happen for us to see the bright future we want to see in the redevelopment arena in Massachusetts. Together with our dedicated regional coordinators, and again, Capri Shaw, Kevin Doust, Kate Carvalho, all these individuals, again, together with David and Abby, we continue to get the word out on Brownfields. It's really alive and well, an extremely vibrant program. And I'm really, truly happy to announce that building upon the success of last year's sessions, a series of roundtables are being planned for 2026. And these are the events where you can expect terrific conversation focusing on technical resources and funding availability to assess and clean up and really put a dedicated plan concept to redevelop the brownfield sites across Massachusetts. So we're really excited about that. Again, 5 planned roundtables, 4 of them in person. And here's how the breakdown is going to be to ensure that we have equity across the state in representation. We're looking at Southeastern Mass, collaborating with the Old Colony Planning Council. For the Central Region, the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission is going to be assisting. In the Northeast region, Northeast will be working with MAPC, and in the Western region with the Berkshire RPC. So these are the 4 in person, and then we'll have the 5th round table is going to be virtual. So please, for more information, kindly please contact David Foss and MassDEP. And we also want to sincerely thank our terrific partners, both federal, state, municipal, and regional, including EPA, the Yukon Tab, and of course, Mass Development for all their support. Thank you. Any questions before we move forward with Brian Rodin and his presentation? Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Millie. You can go to the next slide, please, Amita. All right, so this is the list of policies and guidance and kind of some trainings we're working on. You know, Ken Mara has showed this in the past. And so just to briefly kind of explain how this slide works, I think it's pretty clear, but you know, things move from right to left here as they're in progress and then released for public comment, and then they're completed. And I'll just go through kind of the status of a couple documents that have new changes happening. So risk characterization, you know, that's an ongoing process. We've been in the process of releasing chapters for your review and then revising them. The next chapters to be released are going to be 11, 12, and 13. That is the method 3 risk characterization, imminent hazards, and safety and public welfare. So those will be sizable chapters for review. The time frame on that isn't quite hard yet, but probably looking at somewhere in the early April time frame to release those chapters out for public comment. You know, and as that's going, you know, obviously we're making changes to the other chapters that we've gotten public comment back from. All right, engineered barriers and FAMs, those are kind of on the same track there. Those were released for public comment, and public comment we've gotten public comment, so thank you to all those that commented on those documents. I'll spend a little bit of time highlighting some revisions. On the engineering barriers, we got some comments on kind of the separation layers and the standards and the thickness of those. We decided not to make any changes there. Those separation layers and thicknesses of volume where are in place for a reason. You have contamination above UCLs, and I think we decided to stick with what we were doing there. We did make some adjustments in the defining layer for existing buildings. The option that was in the public comment draft was to put concrete over the existing floor. There's a new option to, based on public comment, to kind of have some identifying layer on top of that, and then it would be kind of sealed into the floor of that existing building. Other than that, I think there were some other minor editorial type comments that we have accepted. So that's the engineer barrier guidance
Hey,
document.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Yep, Steve Sharon from the committee. Is the public comment still open? Are you still accepting comments on these things that are highlighted red
For
in the table?
they're kind of different timeframes here. So engineer barriers and FAMs, that public comment period closed. Risk characterization, like I said, those chapters are going out for public comment. So I don't know if you have in COM 2026 now, that public comment period closed in December 24th.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you had a specific document you were looking about.
The financial assurance mechanisms, and I think it's on the agenda. I have some comments on that when that comes up.
Sure, that's the next thing I was going to talk about. So happy to take your questions. So there were comments on that document as well. One of the changes we were going to make on that document was adding some language for a property transfer that has an existing FAM and how that would work. And then there were some comments about the timing of establishing a FAM and achieving a permanent solution, kind of some questions as to how, working with DEP and the DRD would, obviously we don't want to slow down the process of getting that FAM in place and achieving that permanent solution. We're still trying to figure out the best way to address those comments. But if you have questions on the FAM guidance, you want to ask them now, I think now is the appropriate time.
Yes, sorry, I have to get my microphone on. Yeah, so my comments are more from experience in using financial assurance mechanisms in other states. I'm in industry. I have probably 5 or 6 states that we have financial assurance mechanisms in place. I think one's remediation based, the others are related to permitting of above ground storage tanks, where needs to have certain assurance mechanisms in place for potential releases. And I have one I'm currently working on in Massachusetts to kind of compare it to, where we're putting an engineering barrier in, and we've need to do a FAM for that. What I found is that in all the other states, I'm allowed to use financial self-tests, and couple cases need to back that up with a standby trust. But so in Massachusetts, without not being able to do that, and I literally, my engineering barrier is like a concrete pad that the annual costs for the 30 years is something like 10 grand a year for maintenance costs. And most of these options for financial assurance are pretty expensive. And the cheapest option I found was a surety bond that's like $4 to $5K a year from our provider. So, over that 30 years, I'm going to spend 150K or 120K to have a financial assurance mechanism for pretty minor maintenance activities. And I assume there's probably a history of why the self-test and the parent guarantee is not allowed as an option. But I just have concerns from industry side that, are we regulating to the lowest common denominator on that, as opposed to putting reasonable options in there? Because companies that have the financial wherewithal to handle the minor costs associated with maintenance, I'm going to spend almost as much each year on the financial assurance mechanism as I'm going to spend on the actual maintenance itself. So again, I think there's probably a history there that leads to that being excluded, but I just ask that you revisit that to see if there's an option. They are reviewed all by MassDEP. When I submit my self-tests and assurances, I'm providing SEC documents that are reviewed by auditors that clearly show, the numbers that I'm using in the self-test. So I just ask that you take a look at that because it is a burden for the industry, not being able to have that as a mechanism when it's very common and elsewhere to have that as an option.
All right. Appreciate that comment. I'll take that back to the
Okay,
working group for Pam.
Yep, Steve, and again, I just wanted to note that our BWSC draft financial assurance mechanism guidance sort of outgrew out of our understanding that we are not landfills. Our 21E sites are not landfills, and often we were borrowing from other programs that have a formal guidance on FAMs. So therefore, we customized the existing templates to mirror our needs insofar as licensed site professionals that render an opinion and certify that we're dealing with a real bona fide engineer barrier. And as per the regulation, it warrants a FAM. So, there's room for conversation. And insofar as deputy regional directors out in the regions working directly with those that are establishing FAMs triggered by the presence of a real engineer barrier, and I think that's a different conversation. We introduced a few wayside cleanup meetings ago where folks were checking off engineer barrier, and it's really not an engineer barrier, and then we're looking for the FAM, and it's not there. So distorting the overall sort of universe of real engineer barriers. I think that's the first thing. Do you really have an engineer barrier? If you do, then consider the FAM step. So we will certainly take those comments, but again, there is room for conversation is where I'm going, given that, again, not every wayside cleanup site is the same and not every single fix is the same. So the FAM should be commensurate with what it is that you are protecting in perpetuity, not perpetuity necessarily, but 30 years out. I think that's the goal, to have that conversation and communication to arrive at a FAM that really meets the needs of that particular 21E site. And we'll certainly take your comments.
Yep.
Sure.
Brian, I just wanted to echo Steve's comments. I have a site in Mass, and it is essentially ground to a halt any progress on trying to get the engineer control installed because of this issue about the financial assurance mechanism. And as the clients are experienced with FAMs in other states, and the contrast between that and Massachusetts has just essentially halted this project for at least 6 months now, and we're trying to get it going again, but this has been the major holdup. So thank you.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Yep, definitely will. Millie, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, so I think obviously the expression of comments warrants at least having that conversation. I do want to say that in transparency's sake, we did provide this document for public comment. I really always hope that folks do, use your comment period to express freely what's working, what's not working. But obviously, rather than just finalize a document that may be missing big picture items like the ones that you're voicing today and perhaps did not have the opportunity to put in writing for us to consider, please submit your written comments as soon as possible so we can take those into account prior to finalizing the FAM. We really would appreciate that. Thank you. Okay.
Luke, do you have a question or response to that, or?
Thanks. Just quick comment. The FAM guidance that we're working on right now obviously has to work within the regulations that we have, and so the FAM instruments that are currently called for are called for in the regulations. So if we hear, if some of the commenters are saying those mechanisms are too strict or too expensive, there are other options. That may require a regulatory change. I don't think that's something we can address in this guidance. However, both of the commenters have mentioned other states. If you could send to Brian Roden links to descriptions of other states' programs, whether it's a regulatory site or a link to whatever their website is describing their programs, that would be very helpful, and I would be happy to look at those.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
That's a good
I'm
point.
happy to do that, Lucas, and I do recognize your comment about this guidance document is just telling you how to implement an existing regulation, and it is the issue is with the regulation, not with this document. So I'll put something together and give some examples, and can also provide some costing information too for what I discovered.
Thank you.
Great, that'd be helpful. Okay. All right, so moving on from FAMs and engineered barriers. Also working on the public involvement guidance. That work's ongoing. No set schedule on that, but it's working. COM 26 soils, that name's changed from 25 to 26 now. So again, we received public comment from various groups. Thank you for commenting on that. Internally, we're addressing those comments and working through them. Obviously, that's a commissioner's office policy, so we will, waste site cleanup is working on it now. We'll have to work with the commissioner's office on those comments as well. But we're hoping to move that forward. So that's the update on that one. Two more that will hopefully be going out for public comment in the near future. AEPMM operating regimen. John Fitzgerald is going to talk a little bit about his work recently that he's done, looking at sites in Nero and kind of the obviously the importance of the AEPMM operating regimen and kind of his findings of what he's seen out there and what's happening. And then VPH, EPH guidance update. John's also put a lot of work into that document, and that should be released for public comment in the near future. And he's going to give a little quick update on that later on today as well. I have a whole bunch more that kind of are in the queue in progress that are working on, but I did want to highlight the M&A training. I know the LSPA is here and going to do a quick little presentation too, and they will highlight this, but there is some DEP-led training on M&A happening at the LSPA symposium, in addition to some other DEP regulatory training happening that day. But I did want to highlight that as it's been something that people have been asking for. We still would like to have a modern natural attenuation guidance document, and hopefully the work that we're putting into the training, specifically Tiffany Dool is doing that training. We can use a lot of that information and update an old guidance document that will address modern natural attenuation. And then also AUL training, that guidance document was released a while ago, last year. We are working to put together a training, hopefully in the spring, for an update on AULs. I think that's kind of the highlights there. If there's any other questions on these guidance and policies, I'm happy to answer them. All right. See none yet. We'll go to the next slide. So I did want to highlight technical assistance grants. So these grants are important. They're a great opportunity for community groups or municipalities that are impacted by a disposal site. They're not the PRP, but they're impacted by the disposal site. And these grants will give those community groups an opportunity to learn more about the disposal site, how it's impacting them, and just get the community groups involved. So they're great grants. We were happy that they were available. And as you can see here, the governor's office announced in January that they awarded 6 groups, $20,000 each. You can see the groups listed there. That web link down below will bring you to the tagged web page, and you can see more information about those groups and what they're doing, as well as it will have updates on future grant availability. We are anticipating that we'll be able to continue this grant process going, and we'll have more updates in the near future and when we list the grant opportunities for the next fiscal year. And I think that's all I have, unless there's questions for me. All right.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we will have Kathy Kiley, the Emergency Planning and Response Coordinator for MassDEP and the Bureau. Kathy?
Good morning, everybody. Next slide, please. I'll also be giving an update on emergency response and on the MOSPRA program, the Marine Oil Spill Prevention and Response Program. From the ER standpoint, just to give a snapshot, through February 27th, you can see we've had 673 releases and 708 complaints, and the majority of those release notifications are 2-hour, and the majority of the 2-hour roadway. And that's been pretty consistent throughout the years. I did want to just highlight a few other examples of other 2-hour notifications, and some of these folks may be familiar with because they were received some press or just because of some of the situations. One was the Medford situation that occurred in November, and that was a home heating oil delivery to a wrong address. And there was 385 gallons to a basement that didn't have a tank. So, and I think many folks are familiar with those things happening throughout the Commonwealth over the years. Another example in Dartmouth that occurred in October was a plane crash, and that was the affected Route 195 and the area around that. And that was a release of about 290 gallons of jet fuel. And another example in Arlington that occurred just the end of January. And that was a situation where there was, due to some roadway construction, the folks were cutting through some asphalt, and they inadvertently cut through a high voltage electrical transmission line, and there was a release of many thousand gallons, I believe, of mineral oil, dielectric oil. So just some examples of some other types of releases that we deal with. Next slide, please. And as far as the MOSPRA program, folks are familiar with the geographic response strategy testing, first responder training that's done every year. There's about a dozen, 10 to 12 exercises that are done each year. 6 of them are planned for this spring. They're listed there. And right now, the MOSPRA program staff are working with each of the communities in the planning stages to identify the date for the exercise, as well as identifying the specific tactics and locations that they want to test. For the oil spill trailers, as folks are aware, we've got a number of trailers. I think it might be 81 trailers in 70 communities, or 70 trailers in 81 communities. 81 trailers in 70 communities along the coast. And in due to some of the, they've been there for many years now, and we started to replace the trailers in 5 of them this year, just because of the condition and the age. As you can imagine, they're located near the coast, and so they've had a lot of some damage over the years just from the elements. And we started doing some replacement trailers. The first one was delivered to New Bedford a couple of weeks ago, and Falmouth as well. And I believe Marshfield is next on the list. Our MOSPRA grant program, we're very excited that we'll be announcing the round 3 hopefully the end of March. There's maybe early April, not quite sure exactly of the date right now. There'll be some outreach prior to that. When it is posted, it will be posted on Combis and on the MOSPRA website. We expect to have $1 million available for grants, and these grants are available for local governments, non-profit entities, academia, any essentially public or non-public entity. And the goal is that the projects need to benefit coastal communities and advance the goals of the MOSPRA program from the standpoint of preparedness and prevention for oil spill, preparedness, prevention, and response for oil spills. And the website is listed here. Again, it's a great resource. And this, if you haven't been to the site website recently, take a look at it. It really goes through all the various aspects of the MOSPRA program. These are just a couple of highlights that I gave here. Next slide, please. And another of the programs within MOSPRA is the navigational aids. And there's a number of buoys throughout Buzzards Bay and Cape Cod Bay. And we're pleased to announce that, and some port systems, in Cape Cod and Buzzards Bay. Ports is the physical oceanographic real-time systems. And we've just started the first phase of the Boston Harbor one. And we partner with NOAA for this. And the Boston Harbor one now has a meteorological station and current meter at the Massport Conley terminal. And that just became operational a couple of weeks ago. There's a website there that'll take you to the port's website, and you can actually see locations where NOAA has these ports around the country. But if you go to the Boston one, you'd see this. There's one for Cape Cod, Buzzards Bay, and you'd see the data that's collected there. What this does in the Boston Harbor one, it has the continuous real-time data for currents, winds, air temperature, barometric pressure, and this is available for everybody. So it's public information. So it provides critical information for commercial vessel pilots, the port operators, and certainly during any type of oil spills, emergency responders and oil spill response teams would be able to use it. But even if you're just out boating, it provides some great information. So I wanted to make folks aware of that. And we were really pleased that that first phase went into effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so we will have a report on NRD.
Great. Thanks, Millie. My name's Michelle Craddock. I am the Natural Resource Damages Program Coordinator at MassDEP. I'm just going to give a quick update on the NRD program. So to date, the Commonwealth has settled over 30 natural resource damages claims worth approximately $82.6 million. Some of these are Commonwealth-only claims, while other ones are joint claims with federal agencies like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA. Currently, we have 14 NRD cases that are in various stages of kind of injury assessment, settlement negotiation, and restoration implementation. And as part of that kind of restoration implementation phase, we have 10 active grant awards and interdepartmental service agreements for restoration projects funded by NRD settlements. And these grants range from design and permitting of dam removals to salt marsh restoration and fish ladder construction. These grants are primarily managed by municipalities and local nonprofit organizations. I also did want to make a quick note about an upcoming grant opportunity, and this is for restoration projects in the Mystic River watershed. This grant opportunity will hopefully be open later in the spring, and there'll be just under $130,000 available. funding for this grant opportunity comes from various NRD settlements that we've had for releases of oil to surface water in the Mystic River watershed. And so these funds could be used for projects in the Mystic River watershed that benefit the Mystic River in terms of kind of wetlands, surface waters, shoreline, and aquatic biota. Communities that these funds could potentially be available for include Somerville, Chelsea, Malden, Everett, and Revere. So keep an eye out for that. And again, similar to MOSPRA, they'll be posted on the NRD website as well as combis. Next slide, please. And I did just want to quickly highlight 2 upcoming NRD restoration projects that are being funded with settlement funds that will be going to construction, hopefully early summer and fall of 2026. The first one is construction of 2 wetland and floodplain restoration projects in Tewksbury. These projects are being funded using Sutton Brook Superfund site NRD settlement funds. On the right, there's kind of 2 pictures at the top that are renderings of what the restoration sites will look like once completed. These projects primarily involve the removal of historic fill that was placed on the wetland surface, and primarily, kind of turning those wetlands into uplands. So we'll be returning wetland habitat, floodplain habitat, and providing benefits to those communities. Both projects are located on town-owned land, and we're partnering with the town on implementation of those. The other project I wanted to highlight is construction of a nature-like fish passage in Woburn at the outlet of Horn Pond. This project's being funded with Industriplex, Superfund site NRD funds, along with the town of Woburn and the Mystic River Watershed Association and other project partners. This project's hopefully going to construction this summer and will allow diadromous fish to pass up into Horn Pond for kind of breeding purposes. Horn Pond's located kind of upstream of the Aberjona and Mystic River watersheds, which is one of the biggest herring runs in the state. So this will open up valuable habitat. It'll also have a really cool kind of ADA accessible path up to the fish ladder, and will include a viewing window under the water of the fish ladder. So it'll be a really cool project to check out once it's complete. And I think all these are really, kind of great projects, fit the natural resource damages program really well. And we're excited to see these go to construction, hopefully this summer and early fall. And that's all I've prepared for today. Feel free to follow up with any questions with me if you have them. Thank you. Oh, I have a question.
Hi, Michelle. I had a question about the status of the, I don't even remember if it was pre-COVID. There was discussion of standardizing NRD assessments for 21E sites, and I don't recall any updates on that recently. Can you let us know if that's still on the table or if it's you moved on from that?
So you have a good memory.
And I vote move on, but go ahead.
You have a good memory. As you can see, I haven't included it as an update, so there haven't been any updates in a while on that. I would say it's still on the table. It's still something we're working on, but I think we've working with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs on those. So sorry for you that they're still on the table. We are hoping to move them forward in the future. It'd be primarily focused on a standardized method for small to medium releases of oil to surface waters. That's what we would currently be focusing on, but we don't have a timeline for that, but we certainly will keep you posted when we have an update on that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. And I think I would just add that I think there was a lot of public comment, or at least industry comment around that when it came up. So if it resurfaces, then hopefully we have the opportunity to open that back up for comments.
Yeah, point taken. I think it has been these regulations have been kicking around draft regulations have been kicking around for a long time. So I think, if and when, they come up again, we definitely would be additional outreach about it. So appreciate
Okay,
that
thank you.
comment.
And Steve, we do appreciate your support on that. I think it's in all's best interest to get a path forward for settlement that equates to restoration. So we appreciate your inquiry. We'll pass it along. Susan, morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Michelle. I'm a big fan of the NRD process. We had a grant in Arlington, you may remember, a number of years ago, for an inland oil spill. So when you mentioned the Mystic River restoration in the spring of 2026, you didn't mention the town of Arlington, and we have Mystic River there. Is this just focused on the part of the Mystic that's closer to Boston?
I think that might have been a mistake on my behalf. It is, I think most of the spills that we're drawing the settlement funds are from the lower Mystic River. But I think, anything upstream benefits downstream as well. So I don't think I purposely didn't include Arlington in there.
Wonderful,
So
because
I
we have several broken outfalls that belong to the town. And we had some broken outfalls. Of course, those cause water quality problems. And we've had several that have been fixed by DCR, and one that was fixed by an NRD grant, which is awesome. And we restored a natural habitat, which is great. So we really did an amazing improvement there. But we have 3 others the town cannot afford to fix. So I was looking towards this as an opportunity to maybe put a grant application together. So that'll be coming out when, do you think?
It'll be sometime late in probably late spring. I can
Late
certainly
spring.
add you to my, I'll make sure you're on the distribution list for any
That
emails I
would-
send out about public meetings, stuff like that. So I will make sure you get that information.
That would be wonderful, because the town often partners with the Mystic River Watershed Association, which I know
Yeah.
you're very familiar with. So thank you very much.
They're a great partner. No, thank you. That's helpful.
Mhm.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle. Next, we're going to introduce Ms. Linda Stafford. She is the Division Director for the Technical and Financial Support Services Division of our Bureau. Linda has not presented on this topic since she became our Division Director, so I think it's really meant to be a refresh. So with that, Linda, if you don't mind just introducing the topic of your program and all of the aspects and support that you give to our internal resources as well as external. Thank you.
Thank you, Melly. Good morning, everybody. The TFS division provides the financial and administrative and contractual mechanisms to support the work of the Bureau and the mission of the Bureau. So today I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the functional areas that are part of the TFS division. And I'm going to start the first one with the Procurement, Acquisition, and Contract Administration group. And this group is highly important. What they do is they procure master services agreements, and those agreements support major programs within the Bureau, and they allow swift access to our pool of contractors to provide response and support services. And that's important because having our contractors on board without having to go out and procure each project individually to allow funding allows us to just respond within a very brief window. So our master service agreements support our emergency response program, our immediate response action program, the site assessment and remediation support services, also known as the SARS contract, our marine oil spill prevention and response services program, that's also known as MOSPRA, our natural resource damages program, which Michelle just spoke about, our laboratory analytical and support services program, and it also provides us the means to provide operation and maintenance activities at Superfund sites that the EPA has transferred the responsibility for the operation and maintenance back over to the state. Next slide, please. The next group would be our cost recovery and fee program. And this program provides a major source of revenue for the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup as well as the Commonwealth. It averages about $10 million per year and sometimes more than that. This program is comprised of annual compliance fees that are charged to our PRPs that perform response actions, and it's meant to reimburse the Commonwealth for the cost that we incur to administer and implement and monitor the 21E and MCP program. The other component, the second component, is the cost recovery piece. When we go out and we attempt to recover the cost incurred by MassDEP to perform the response action work, the PRP should be performing, excuse me. When they don't perform the work, MassDEP steps in and performs the work in their stead, and we try to recover the costs. So the costs that we recover would include our contractor costs as well as any labor costs incurred from our DEP staff during the period of the response action. The third component would be our transporter fee program. And with that program, the Commonwealth recovers the cost for assessing, containing, and removing releases and threats of oil and hazardous materials to the environment. And all three combined are a very successful program for the Commonwealth and wayside cleanup. Next slide, please. The third group would be our data management and information technology support services group. This group supports wayside cleanup's information management systems, processes, computer and data management functions, and hardware and software needs. And it includes our project management system, our financial tracking system, the BEAR system, work on EDEP, as well as our file viewer. That component is integral, and it also works with EEA and the Commonwealth's other IT programs in conjunction with them. The third slide is on our financial management group, and this group prepares, tracks, and manages wayside cleanup's budget. And this allows all of the components of wayside cleanup to operate. So we have our capital budget, which is our bond fund, and this funds our 21E program and all of the activities surrounding that. We also have an operating budget, and that is comprised of just salaries for wayside cleanup, as well as our operating expenses like training and travel and such things like that. We also we have a lot of trust funds that we maintain, the NRD trust fund, the MOSPRA trust fund, and then we have a group of probably another 20 trust funds that we administer, and we are able to cover some costs on those projects that are funded by those trust accounts. We also have acquisition of equipment, supplies, and services, as well as financial administration, which includes our accounts payable, encumbrance management, and our federal grant program, financial administrative and reporting. It's a very busy group, and they do a lot of outstanding work. And that is my final slide, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Linda. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're going to turn it over to Ms. Terry Wood, the Executive Director for the Massachusetts LSP Board.
Hi,
Terry.
thanks, Melly, and good morning, everyone. I have a few short updates about what's going on at the LSP Board. The first is regulation amendments. The board's regulations have been amended effective January 30th, 2026. Among other things, the amendment has reduced and simplified the continuing education credits needed for LSP renewal. An unofficial copy of the updated regulations are on the board's webpage, along with a background document that explains the rationale for all of the amendments. The board has updated the LSP renewal application and the board's webpage to reflect the updated continuing education requirements. The next topic is the LSP board exam. The next exam administration is scheduled for April 8th through 10th. Approved applicants have been notified regarding registration for the exam. The next topic is LSP board discipline. Since the start of 2026, the board has concluded 2 disciplinary cases by entering into administrative consent orders with the LSPs. One case resulted in the LSP's license being suspended for 90 days and requiring the LSP to take additional continuing education courses. The other resulted in the LSP's license being suspended for 18 months and requiring the LSP to take a particular continuing education course. At this point in time, the board has no active disciplinary cases. Other board initiatives, the LSP board plans to develop and present an LSP ethics course for presentation later this year. I am open to any questions. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, so next we'll have Katie Kutzma, LSP Board Association President.
Hello, thanks. My name is Katie Kutzma. I'm an LSP and current president of the LSPA. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today on behalf of the association. We are grateful for the continued collaboration between our organization and MassDEP. Go to the first slide, or second slide. The LSPA is pleased to announce a full lineup of membership courses and meetings this spring, from organic chemistry to risk communications and offerings for our emerging professionals. The LSPA has programming for everyone, More information on these events can be found at www.lspa.org. Next slide, please. In addition, the LSPA is excited for its upcoming annual environmental symposium, which will take place on April 9th in Framingham, Massachusetts. As many of you know, this is the LSPA's flagship event, and this year's program will feature 7 courses over 2 tracks, 3 of which will offer DEP credit. We appreciate DEP's continued collaboration with us on this program. Next slide. To that end, if you've not renewed your LSPA membership, or if you're interested in attending LSPA programs or the symposium this spring, now is a great time to renew or join. LSPA members receive discounts on continuing education courses, free discounted access to monthly membership meetings, participation in LSPA's committees, technical resources, and advocacy on behalf of the profession. Next slide. For those interested in becoming more involved in LSPA leadership, the LSPA Nominations and Elections Committee is seeking nominations for eligible candidates to sit on the LSPA Board of Directors. Those nominated must be an LSPA member in good standing, demonstrate a genuine and committed interest to serving the LSPA and its members, understand the issues facing the LSPA and the wayside cleanup profession, be familiar with the LSPA's governance structure, such as involvement in LSPA committee work and/or leadership, and attend monthly board of directors meetings and quarterly board committee chairs meetings. Members serve 3-year terms, and nominations must be received by March 13th, 2026. Please visit the LSPA website for more information on how to submit a nomination. And then there should be one more slide. And then finally, we're proud to announce that the application period for our 2026 grant programs will open on March 31st. The LSPA has 2 grant programs. The Environmental Justice Grant Program assists recipients in implementing community-driven projects that provide a better understanding of local environmental and public health issues and assists communities in developing strategies for addressing those issues through both direct programming as well as future planning, career, and/or education efforts. Awardees can receive up to $5,000, and examples of projects include, but are not limited to, property and watershed cleanups, restoration of natural habitats, community gardening, waste collection efforts, water conservation, facility siting issues, youth education, career development, and more. Second, the West LSP Practice Grant provides up to $7,500 to projects that advance the profession and generate practical resources for the LSPA membership and broader waste site cleanup community, such as white papers, articles, presentations, or webinars. You must be an LSPA member to apply, and new this year, applications will be received between March 31st and July 1st, as opposed to being accepted on an ongoing basis as they were in the past. Examples of past award projects include air monitoring data at asbestos and soil sites, high viscosity LNAPL recoverability assessment, evaluation of elevated background concentrations of lead in urban fill, and more. Applications for both grants are due by July 1st, and grants will be awarded by the end of 2026 for use in 2027. So visit the LSPA website for more information and to apply. Thank you for your time this morning. Please don't hesitate to contact me or Mary Ellen Morris, the LSPA's Executive Director, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Katie. We're excited to support your LSPA April 9th event, and I think it's going to be a resounding success. So we're very excited.
We're excited. Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to introduce Site Cleanup's thoughts on refreshing our Waste Site Cleanup Advisory Committee, and again, with the goal of building for a sustainable future here. Next slide. So, decades ago, MassDEP formed this advisory committee with the goal of having this esteemed group of advisors helping with the informing and providing advice to our Bureau on all of the cleanup program elements under the guise of our collective mission, which I have included here to the far right. MassDEP's mission to protect and enhance our Commonwealth's natural resources. It was interesting as I was looking through old files from past assistant commissioners. I really did not run into any documentation regarding guiding principles, but I think what I've attempted to do here is basically just identify 5 touch points that basically serve, in my estimation, as good guiding principles that we can all agree on. And despite, again, not having a charter, I think we can define this advisory committee as a very sort of loosely formed yet cohesive group of individuals that are extremely valuable to MassDEP and the Bureau insofar as providing commentary that speaks to the reality that LSPs, consultants, and natural resource advocates encounter during the process of notifying, assessing, cleaning up, and then restoring resources that have been injured by oil and hazardous materials. So in thinking about this committee, I hope you agree that we share a sense of purpose, that be in promoting sound and balanced policy guidance and program practices. Likewise, obviously, in a transparent manner that promotes collaboration, open dialogue, obviously with accountability and diversity of thought. Again, we maintain that these are perhaps good guiding principles and essential to our achieving our collective 2020 program work now and in years to come. So, we are again introducing this topic. I would like to get feedback from all of the advisors and the public at large as we continue on this journey. So next, let's move to slide number 34. This is the current Waste Site Cleanup Advisory Committee as of today, and we're really excited to have this very highly talented, high-performing group of thoughtful advisors with us. And out of the bat, I'm going to say, don't go anywhere. We don't want to lose you. We want to encourage your continued participation. And again, we thank you very much for your support. You always show up, you always contribute, and we're happy for that. Please note that, in the construction of this committee, our past leaders and luminaries, they really thought about bringing together professionals from the top 10 sectors that are most relevant to our program's core mission. And I think that was really brilliant, thinking about advocacy, site neighbors, public interest, the municipal officials, water distributors. We work hand in glove with the Bureau of Water Resources, particularly the drinking water program and other programs. So we're grateful for that component. Clearly, the PRP attorneys providing that counsel and voice, manufacturing, the 2020 consultants, LSPs, real estate, commercial lending, and the small groups. So I feel if we're missing a sector, I would definitely invite folks to comment if we should expand the number of sectors that we currently have represented. That's one area where I'd like your feedback. So again, thank you to all the current representatives, and please do not go away. Note that there's one vacant position, and we'll get to that in a minute. Amita, if you don't mind advancing the screen. Again, like any organization that's tasked with ensuring that we are building for the future and weathering the business plans, the plans that often changes over time, whether it's attrition or lack of interest or anything that may impact the vitality of a group. We definitely need to once in a while do a refresh, and that's what we're attempting to do now. Our Bureau strongly believes that developing a conceptual plan that addresses anticipated succession and natural attrition that occurs is really the right thing to do. Therefore, this is why we're having this conversation today. Our Wayside Cleanup Advisory, again, provides the opportunity for these 10 sector-specific professionals representing a wide variety of individuals that also have the same interests to serve in advisor capacity. And as I noted prior, there's 9 slots that are currently filled. Thank you for that. And there's 1 that remains vacant. The proposed plan calls for current members to kindly please reaffirm their interest in remaining active advisors through February 2028. So that's 2 years from now. Anyone wanting to or needing to step down for any reason, please contact me directly. We appreciate your feedback. And if you have recommendations for any individuals that might be interested, we also want to hear from you. Certainly want to ensure that we have vibrant, committed individuals representing these sectors. I also want to honor the fact that I believe 1 year ago or so, at a past advisory committee meeting, I did announce the opportunity for any individual interested in joining in as a member to please send me an expression of interest. And today I'd like to inform you that I haven't forgotten and that I did receive 3 expressions of interest in the last year. And therefore, I will be contacting these 3 individuals to see if there's still interest in serving as active advisors. Predicated on what sector, et cetera, we would basically just include them where the subject matter expertise matches the best with the sector. And also today, just in the interest of, again, transparency in case that people felt left out because they didn't attend the meeting last year, again, I'm renewing and announcing that Site Cleanup will entertain up to 2 more individuals interested in serving as members, again, based on sector need, subject matter expertise, experience, and commitment affirmation. So ultimately, we seek to expand the group just so that we can be prepared to shoulder any kind of natural attrition, negative impacts, and again, fostering equity, diversity of thought, and again, to support all of our aspects of our program development policy and guidance writing. Also, we're looking for your feedback, again, as an advisory committee, whether there's interest in, self-identifying a chair that works with the assistant commissioner who also moderates this particular committee. So maybe like a co-chair. We recognize this is not a board of directors. We recognize that there are no subcommittees, although we're going to have a little bit of conversation about that today for a specific effort that we're about to launch. But again, any proposal coming from you in terms of how to organize ourselves a little bit more formally, if that's something that you see value in, especially when we have opportunities for comment. Obviously, we receive comments from anyone, but if there is interest in maybe having the committee put together comments directly as a group, or maybe decide that they want to submit them separate, we would like to hear from you. So again, thank you for the ongoing support to MassDEP. We know it's hard. This is a volunteer basis. I know your time is extremely valuable, and we truly, truly appreciate your engagement and collaboration. You guys are a terrific group of people to work with. It's my honor to serve in this role and have really the distinct honor of engaging with you anytime that we need assistance and just in general. So thank you very much. We will be rolling out a final plan to be presented at the May 2026 Advisory Committee meeting. And in the meantime, we hope that within the next 3 months, we can collect some really good commentary from you. And again, thank you. Hey, Jeff.
Millie, thanks for this. This is really thoughtful. And I haven't seen anything, as one of the longest serving members referenced here, I haven't seen anything like this in a long time. So thank you for that. I do want to refer back to the FAM discussion earlier in this meeting.
Yes.
because it's indicative of an earlier moment in time program when the program and the committee would interact about things even
Mhm.
before a proposal went out for public comment. And that was pre-COVID when we were all together. I think it
Mhm.
could probably happen virtually as well. But I would just ask you to consider going forward with respect to the things that are in the works, whether there's a role for this advisory committee to play in helping the department to think through its proposal even before the proposal is officially made for public comment.
100%. And you pretty much, which is wonderful, stole the thunder for today's conversation on vapor intrusion. You know, I am so grateful for your comment. I think we have a huge emphasis, at least I'll let you know that I'm hyper focused on ensuring that some of the outdated or, oldies but goodies, but maybe needing a little bit of a facelift documents, that those documents are updated in a way that makes sense, whether it's updating or creating new documents. And again, the FAM is a perfect example. We were availing ourselves to FAM documents from other bureaus, never mind, programs. And insofar as articulation of FAM requirements in our own regulation, we had a void there, which is why that document sort of was deemed as one that we needed to lift. But Jeff, I really truly appreciate your comment because, we possibly could have done it better. And I think seems to me that having thoughtful rollout and saying, please focus your attention on this. This is our goal. This is where we need to go. And need be forming, whether it's a small focus group or something, or at least laying out the foundation as we see it, and then having that interaction directly with advisors. That's your role. And we want to be very respectful of your role. We need to get it right. So we're all ears. Certainly underscore again that we'd like to, if you have any FAM comments, we're reopening this process a little bit. Send us your comments as soon as please possible. And we will be extremely transparent in providing what we received, how it was handled, and again, a very important document. So thank you, Jeff. Again, drop me an email with more concrete. We really want to get it right. We want to get the role right. We're going to get process right. I see Susan and Lisa. So I don't know if Susan, I think you might be first and then Lisa. Okay.
Well, I totally agree with Jeff. I had been talking with the prior your predecessors, Millie, about getting new blood on this commission, on this committee, and how do we do that, and how do we structure it to be a little more impactful, and be able to give our guidance. I do agree with Jeff that in the past under Paul Locke, I felt, maybe it's just my feeling, that we had more real input before guidance came out. For example, TCE, I remember being a bit of a bulldog, bringing that up all the time. I know Lisa Camp did too with Paul Locke to really push that over the finish line. In my role as public interest environmental. So I applaud you on opening this up. I think it is time we have a refresh. I'd recommend maybe term limits. I think 2 years is too short. You need some time to kind of get used to the group and participate and and have a voice. Maybe it would be 3 years, maybe it would be 4 years, maybe it would be 5 years, but some time limit. And then after that, you would say you're interested, or you would be replaced with, a new face, a fresh face, or whatever. And I also think we should be thoughtful. I appreciate you bringing this up about what are the sectors, and are we missing anything in terms of, the breadth of the committee. So, and I feel like I've had a lot of impact in community members who come to me and ask me questions about hazardous waste or other kinds of chemicals. They don't know if they're hazardous or not. And I'd like to see this commission also address emerging contaminants and things like that, new things that are coming down the pike, as we have in the past when perchlorate was new and PFAS was new. So, yeah, but I applaud you on taking on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We'll take
Yeah.
stock of those comments, and I believe, especially since policy moves very slow, and it's not always easy to try to arrive at the balance. So I do agree. So we kind of threw out like the 2-year thing, but again, we don't want to lose you. And we see how some other boards often struggle with getting membership. So we definitely do not want to lose this really high-performing team of advisors that we have. We're very grateful and really fortunate to have you all.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you.
I'll keep it brief because I know we're behind schedule. So I agree with everything that Jeff, Susan, and you said. I think I really do value the opportunity to have dialogue prior to the issuance of some of these draft guidance, policies, et cetera. I think getting input at the beginning can actually enhance the efficiency of the, rolling out policies and, maybe, like a whoopsie or whatever that can be addressed proactively versus, reactively. And I think I was very heartened to see the collaboration as one of the guiding principles. I think it is really important, and that was the whole genesis of, I think, the advisory, is to have multiple perspectives, especially from practitioners and other stakeholders like Susan and other public interests from the get-go, and that really adds to the diversity and robustness of the regulations and policies. And to that end, I guess I would just say I'm a huge fan of having stakeholder focus groups for important guidance, document updates, or genesis. I know you had vapor intrusion on the list. That's great. That's certainly a passion of mine. And I think, it would be great to sort of rejigger that. That's again something that, we had in the past. And I think it actually really benefited the process, both for DEP and for stakeholders. Again, shortening the amount of back and forth, and let's get it as right as we can the first time. I know I've said it every meeting, but again, for the risk assessment, there's been a lot of comment so far. I know there's more chapters coming. I would really advocate for having some kind of focus group of stakeholders and practitioners to meet with the people from DEP who are working on those guidance documents, maybe even before the last 3 chapters are put out, to just sort of see where things at with the previous revisions. And with that, I will be quiet. Thanks.
No, please don't be quiet. Thank you very much, Lisa. We appreciate that. We really do. And yeah, it's a new day to try to refresh this. We really appreciate it. Q. Okay, more to come. Send me your comments, please. And then we might be scheduling maybe a call with just on this. So we will just stay tuned on that. Thank you. All right, terrific. Thank you, John Fitzgerald, for making an appearance today and talking about very active work that is going on in Neuro, but really we are grateful that he's assisting the Boston policy folks to help with the development of the draft operating regime, as well as the EPH VPH guidance. Again, that's one that, again, maybe we could test drive it to ensure that we have a meeting to kind of prior. However, let it be known that this work has been something that happened pre my taking over. So there's a lot of work that has been advanced. We can ensure that we provide This will be going for public comment, is what I'm trying to say, and we would like maybe to introduce the topic. Never mind here, but maybe a special meeting to kind of set the stage for what the reviewers should expect. And if there's something that's missing, we can maybe work in tandem. But there'll be a little bit of a tweeter option here until we refresh it and we put a little bit of a process that aligns with what Jeff and Susan and Lisa have articulated. So bear with us for a little bit. But again, we're going to have John give us a presentation. So I know he's using his own slide deck, I believe. So that's why we are in transition right now. So John, whenever you're ready.
Hello and good morning. So I've got to share my slides, right, from the people in Boston?
Yes.
And how did that work out?
It says that you started your sharing, so you should be all set.
All right, you can see my slide here then?
We
Yes,
have
you can.
yeah,
If you want to put them on slideshow, I think it will show a little bit.
Here we go.
There. Thank you.
Pretty good for a boomer, huh?
Not bad.
All right,
Better
good
you than
morning.
me.
I'm here to talk about one of my current areas of interest, AEPMM, which gets my vote for the worst DEP, the MCP acronym. It stands for Active Exposure Pathway Mitigation Measures. And just, oops, we're actually starting too early. So much for my boomer speech there. Anyways, a little bit of background on AEPMM. From 1993 to 2014, the first 21 years of the new MCP, you could not get a permanent solution if it relied upon the use of active electromechanical systems in order to maintain a condition of no significant risk. The concern there was obvious that it's not a question of when, it's a question, not a question of if, a question of when these systems are going to break down. And that would be a concern, obviously. In 2014, the MCP was amended to provide an exemption for certain active remedial measures, and those are the ones that dealt with exposure pathway mitigations. Typically, we're talking about vapor intrusion pathways, and also, and more frequently now, private well contamination, especially by PFAS. But the bulk of what we see out there with respect to AEPMM are vapor intrusion mitigation measures. Now, obviously, when this came out in 2014, assurances were made that systems would be in place to ensure that we could maintain no significant risks for the future. These systems run for decades, so it's important to have that infrastructure in place. And a key component of that infrastructure was something called an operating regimen that had to be developed and implemented to ensure that we were protecting public health with these systems. For the regulations, an operating regimen shall be designed to ensure a level of no significant risk for permanent solutions, shall document the parameters for operating the AEPMM and methods and frequency for monitoring. A new provision was added in 2024 for SSD systems, established the acceptable vacuum range to maintain an accepted negative pressure field beneath a building for each area or zone of gas extraction, soil gas extraction. And lastly, it must employ remote monitoring telemetry. Why is this important? And if you know me, you know that I'm very passionate about this with respect to vapor intrusion. And that's because for most of our sites, we're talking about potential or short-term exposures. There may be contamination at depth. There may be contamination in the groundwater. Even if it's surface contamination in soil, the exposures are, minutes or hours per day or per week or per month or per year. It's not a continuous exposure pathway. Also, your skin is a fairly rugged membrane with respect to absorption of the contaminants. It's important, of course, and we need to look at these, but it's just not in the same league, in my opinion, with respect to the vapor intrusion pathway. Here, we're talking about real, not potential, real. We're talking about continuous, up to 24/7 exposures to oil or hazmats, including to sensitive receptors. So in my mind, there's just no higher level of concern at MCP sites than the vapor intrusion pathway. I've always felt that, and I still feel that. And I think we really need to take this extremely seriously with respect to our approach to these sites here. Okay, it's been 11 years of allowing this kind of activity. So the obvious question is, well, how are we doing? So in our office here, we undertook, and we're still undertaking, a systematic inspection of these AEPMM systems. We're focusing on SSDS systems for vapor intrusion. And in the calendar year 2025, we actually looked at 16 sites that we inspected. And these sites had, in many cases, multiple systems. But even so, that 16 sites were well less than 10% of the systems in Nero. So we have a lot more work to do. I will tell you the universe of what we did look at last year included 11 sites that had filed a permanent solution, 3 that were in ROS, and 2 that were in a temporary solution. Now, these inspections were pretty robust. So we went to the site, we did pressure and flow measurements, telemetry system shutdown, we took samples of indoor air, soil gas, SSD exhaust. We reviewed the design and demonstration of effectiveness of the AEPMM system and reviewed the operating regimen. So it was a fairly robust evaluation of these particular systems that we looked at. All right, here are the findings. Actually, I'll tell you the good news first. We have not identified an imminent hazard condition. We have identified sites where the air levels were elevated above what they should be, but we have not as yet discovered an imminent hazard condition. But otherwise, the findings were a little disheartening. Of the 15 sites that have filed one of these permanent solution, ROS temporary solution, after 2014, when these provisions went into effect, 6 had no operating regimens or SSDS O&M requirements of any kind. Actually, most of these sites didn't use the word operating regimen, but we were liberal in trying to find some kind of a plan on these systems, and also with respect to what needs to be done to ensure that they continue to operate in a safe manner. Of the 9 sites that had operating regimens or some kind of O&M requirements for the AEPMM system, we found 6 to be deficient. We did find 3 that were adequate to very good. There were 2 that were actually very good that we did identify. We also found telemetry system issues at 4 of the 15 sites, and it ended up that 13 of our 16 sites, we required follow-up actions to ensure that what was being done out there was being done in a safe manner. So one of the problems that we did note, we'll list them here. Plans and schematics were sometimes not reflective of the as-built system. We had one site where the LSP basically said that the client did not allow him to design the system, so it was done by someone else, and he didn't really know much about that system and really how well it was working, which is alarming. There was limited to no information on the correlation of vacuum at the extraction points and the extent of negative pressure field below the building, which I'll get to more in a minute. There were many statements of the monitoring criteria being developed to ensure the system was working as designed, which didn't make me feel really that good. I don't think any one of these said this criteria will ensure that we will maintain a condition of no significant risk. A system can, in fact, be working as designed. It doesn't mean that it's actually ensuring no significant risk. And that's a missing piece, that we really need to focus on, I think. Also, specified monitoring and record keeping was not being conducted by the property owner or the PRP in those sites that did have operating regimens that did require that to be done. We had a very large apartment building on a TCE site where there was supposed to be monitoring done over the course of many years. We asked for that information. We sent out a request for information, and after some back and forth, we finally got the response, and that response was, yeah, we're not doing any of that stuff, which is also not good. Some systems have lowest fan within the living working space of the building, which is something we don't like, because if there's any kind of a leakage on the positive pressure side of the system, that leakage will be going into the building. That's not a good design practice, but we did note that in a number of the systems, or at least some of the systems. Most sites had no visible or accessible subslab probes to verify negative pressure field extension, requiring reliance upon manometer gauge readings and extraction pipes. Unfortunately, most sites did not have manometers or gauges or working manometers gauges at each extraction point, which was also problematic. So obviously, the current situation, certainly in my view, is unacceptable. I think LSPs need to take more ownership of AEPMMs and operating regimens. A lot of times, if they do provide it, it's an appendix in the report. It was often done by a contractor. And actually, that's not a problem. In fact, some of the best ones we've seen was done by a contractor. But it's important that the LSP make sure that not only are the nuts and bolts of the system with respect to monitoring appropriate, but that the system itself is going to result in a condition of no significant risk. Again, a system operating as designed does not give me comfort that, in fact, this system will ensure for the foreseeable future a condition of no significant risk. I think PRPs and property owners need to be more invested in follow-up monitoring. Again, we're just not seeing these records being kept that the O&M or operating regimens in the filings indicate should be done. And from our point of view, I think DEP needs to take steps to ensure protection of public health. This is on us. That is our statutory responsibility to ensure the protection of public health. And I'm not sure we're doing it now with what we're seeing out there for these systems. So we are looking to develop guidance and expectations on SSDS and AEPMMs with respect particularly to operating regimens. And what we're thinking of requiring here is that operating regimen submittals must contain all of the AEPMM information, data, monitoring requirements needed to demonstrate it is, quote, designed to ensure a level of no significant risk for permanent and temporary solutions and ROS, which is actually the definition in the MCP. Right now, it's very hard to find information in submittals. They're scattered. You can't really see that. We think there need to be a very discrete document that basically is available for all to see that demonstrate that this system, in fact, is doing the job correctly, and that the following information is, and the following monitoring and maintenance is necessary to ensure that this continue for the years and decades that the system needs to be run. We're talking about as-built plans of the system, which often we don't see in the report. Also, a demonstration of the effectiveness of the system with respect to correlation of extraction vacuum with subslab vacuum fields and correlation of extraction vacuum with indoor air. Now, this is critical, and this is what we do, and this is the way it should be done. Essentially, you might have a building, maybe a large apartment building, and you're going to put in a system. It may have a few or even one extraction points, and that extraction point is designed to propagate a negative pressure field under the entire footprint of the building to ensure that any vapors are entrained in that pressure field and discharged into the atmosphere. That's how it's done. And the idea is to show that, X inches of water column negative pressure at that extraction point, one or more, is equal to Y inches of water column in the subslab in the most remote parts of the building that may be affected by the vapor intrusion pathway. And furthermore, that at that extraction point operation, we can ensure that there will be no significant risk in these portions of the building. And the regs require indoor air testing, EPCs, and the regs say specifically to look at varying temporal conditions. So we're talking about more than one round of sampling, which we sometimes do not see in these submittals. Now, again, we're not looking for routine air monitoring or even routine evaluation of probes to the slab. the whole idea here is to use the extraction vacuum as a surrogate for the proper operation of the system. This extraction point value is also what is measured by the telemetry system. This is key, that if that vacuum remains within a range that's appropriate, there's an assumption that the building occupants are going to be safe. And that's fine, and that's the way to do it. But first of all, there must be that demonstration of this correlation. That's first and foremost. And then once that is done, then there is a need to articulate those monitoring steps that must be done to ensure that this situation continues into the future. So I think that's key to addressing this problem here. The operating regimen must provide details on key system components, including needed maintenance and expected replacement schedules, a tabulation of acceptable vacuum pressure rate ranges at all monitoring points, all extraction points. Again, we typically don't have those vapor probes available anymore. We need to rely upon the vacuum at the extraction points, and the previous demonstration that at those monitoring points, at the extraction point negative pressures, we have some confidence that the building occupants will in fact be protected because of the expected negative pressure below those areas. We need detailed site-specific methods and frequency for monitoring to ensure NSR for the foreseeable future, which we often do not see in these plans. We also believe that monitoring must include a combination of on-site inspections and the use of a telemetry system. Our thoughts now is the amount of on-site monitoring inspection is a function of the certainty provided by the telemetry system. There are various telemetry systems allowed in the MCP, including grandfathering provisions for older systems that only would transmit if a power outage occurred. The best possible telemetry is a continuous transmission of vacuum at the most appropriate extraction points. The benefit there is, as opposed to a system that will tell you when the power was out, if you don't get a transmission, there's two possibilities. One, the system is running. Two, the power is out, not only to the system, but also to the telemetry system. And if you have a system that just measures power outage, having power does not mean a site is actually operating with the proper vacuum. We don't know that unless we measure the vacuum. So again, these are systems, they are allowed in the MCP, and that's just the way that it is. However, we believe that depending upon what system you have, that must be complemented with an appropriate degree of on-site monitoring to ensure, once again, these systems are operating properly, and we can then have some comfort that the people, the occupants, are being adequately protected. So those are our thoughts on what we need to have for guidance in this respect. That's what I have now. I guess we can take questions or comments. Millie, I'll defer to you on that at this point.
John?
Yes, Matt.
As another engineer, hey, John, I know the monitoring you're looking for is the monitoring at the actual vacuum point, but I thoroughly agree with you on monitoring, on the need for having the effectiveness monitored at the most extreme locations to make sure it's reaching the entire vacuum field. What do you think about the idea of trying to do that monitoring on continuous monitoring telemetry? You know, so we not only know that just knowing that the vacuum system is pulling vacuum at the suction point is one thing, but what we really want to know, right, is that the vacuum field under the entire building is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. A couple of issues there, though. You know, we're looking at very low levels. We're talking about 0.012 inches of water column.
Understood.
I'm not even sure that there's transducers that do that. Maybe there are. And it's just one monitoring point. And sometimes there's issues. And having a more, representative of the entire system reading is also appropriate, but certainly there's room for discussion in that as well.
Yeah. So definitely what I'd like to consider is that before we roll this out, we hold let's walk through our concepts and we hear the types of comments that Matt is referring to. And that way, knowing that and respecting the fact that there's so much to unpack here, I think it would be nice to just have a focused session on AEPMMs. If agreeable with you all, that would be our recommendation before we launch on a formal, submit your comments. And in consideration also that we want to talk a little bit about vapor intrusion as well, and keep the agenda going. We've heard comments about ending promptly at 11 o'clock. So I see I see Lisa and Sarah.
I think this is a segue probably to the vapor intrusion, and I agree we need to keep it moving. But so John, is the thought though that as this gets more solidified, these things will be actually inserted into the vapor intrusion guidance with additional clarity on demonstrating the correlations that you just described, in addition to what's currently in the vapor intrusion guidance?
I think ultimately it might, in fact, be incorporated, but that's a year or year and a half away. And I think this needs to be put out much sooner than that, because of the importance of what we're doing.
This will be separate apart, but related as a standalone guidance document specific to AEPMMs.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying like the things that are
concepts
here will be,
yes.
So they'll be parallel. Okay.
Yes. Perfect, thank you. Sarah?
I've been working with John on this project, but something I just wanted to mention that I think I didn't see or hear from him is those pressure ranges should have an upper range as well, not just a lower range. We have, in particular, a site I'm thinking of where the blower is not exhausting, it's only sucking, and it's like, because it didn't have that upper pressure limit or upper vacuum limit, we assumed like, okay, it's functioning fine because there's plenty of vacuum. Just an example that I didn't think I heard while I was kind of getting things going in the lab while I'm half listening.
Yeah. Thank you, we appreciate that. Again, we will have the formation of a group prior to rollout, at least a meeting to walk through the concepts and then get folks to comment formally. Lauren.
It's her husband, Isaac Anderson. Hey, John.
Hi, Isaac. Thank you.
Hey, so I couldn't miss this presentation, but I just wanted to ask you, John, I know that this has been going on in the Northeast. I've seen it on the back end, I guess, from clients, and I was wondering if what you've been working on is being shared with the other sections in DEP, if they're working off what you've done, or if you're sharing that, if it's similar, if everybody's kind of doing their own thing at the moment.
No, I think audit programs in all regions are doing this. I think the difference is we just have the ability to take samples and analyze it on a GCMS. So we're just, and also doing pressure readings with the pitot pressure and flow rate readings. So all regions are doing these audits here. I think we're just doing it to a higher degree.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think these are the informations and concepts that we share on a monthly basis with our senior leadership, all the deputy regional directors across the state. So United Front, we want to make sure that everybody gets the same treatment across the state. So, but thank you for raising that consistency issue. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we are going to, let's see, and by the way, all the chat comments, we will be collecting all those. We appreciate the feedback, whether it's oral or in chat or obviously emails. More to come on AEPMMs. We promise to see you very soon on that. VPA, GPH, and I know, again, cognizant of the time here. Let's at least walk through these slides. And again, continue to present the material. John?
Yes, I'll be quick on this. So everyone, I think, is aware of the 2002 implementation of the MassDEP VPH-GPH approach. It's pretty old, obviously. It's 23 years, so it's about time. I think we got around to updating it. So, in fact, I have been working on this since COVID. Taken a long time. I've got a lot of ideas and notes, and also we've changed the title of the document to Petroleum Site Characterization Guidance to really reflect the expansion in the document with respect to what's being addressed. And I've tentatively added about 20 pages with respect to that to the document. Still draft, obviously. Significant updates to addition, continued expanded emphasis on screening data to lower testing costs, reduced need for chemical testing in non-ground 101 areas, lower cost screen out options for vapor intrusion, increased emphasis on the need to rule out non-hydrocarbon contaminants. So the first three concern trying to make this more cost effective, which is one of my passions, but also the last one is to make sure we're not underestimating risk. A lot of these sites may have other contaminants like chlorinated hydrocarbons that are not being looked at, and that needs to be addressed, I think, as well. Understanding and eliminating high bias in groundwater data, which we see. Understanding and eliminating high bias in indoor air data. The ins and outs of the MCP risk assessment tools. The ins and outs of AULs. Clarification of long-standing gray areas. Also, I've drafted up a new section on homeowner oil spills, which has always also been one of my interests, to try to streamline that and to decrease costs in this regard. Basically, I've got a lot of guidance about using all risk assessment tools to demonstrate NSR and eliminate the need for an AUL, which I know is an issue for homeowners. SRM, CEPs, and AEPMMs, OMI, a lot of information on that with respect to homeowner situations, and also a further evaluation of the temporary solution option for homeowners as a viable means to reduce cost. The thing about petroleum, obviously, it's highly biodegradable, and typically these are not our biggest issues with respect to contamination of water supplies, with respect to vapor intrusion. So I think there are certainly avenues here to streamline and reduce costs when it comes to these assessment activities. And that's all I got for my quick streamlined evaluation.
Great. So advisors, more to come in the public at large. Also, LSP consultants community, we will form a specific meeting to walk through these issues, these particular two standalone documents that we hope to launch soon. But we clearly want to make sure that they resonate with you. So terrific. We are going to now navigate into at least a couple of slides on vapor intrusion guidance. We are looking forward to updating that guidance, and Brian Roden is going to talk to us about our proposed approach to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Millie. All right, so we can go to the next slide. So we talked about updating the vapor intrusion guidance. That was in one of my previous slides. The existing guidance is 10 years old, so it's it's time to take a look at that. We heard John talk about the importance of the indoor air pathway, and obviously it's a critical pathway. I think John, explained those reasons quite well in his talk there. Hitting on, we don't have a choice. We have to breathe the indoor air. It's a continuous exposure. We continue to see, buildings impacted by vapor intrusion. So obviously it's a critical pathway that we want to make sure we're doing it right. And so we thought it was a good time to kind of reassess that guidance document and just take a look at it and see what areas could be improved. Can we go to the next slide, Amita? And so, as Millie talked about in our refresh here, and Jeff and Lisa and Susan all chimed in on, one of our proposed kind of idea approach here is to kind of do exactly what we were talking about there, is some type of focused group to gain practitioner input for this document to see what changes need to be incorporated into this document. In addition to that, MassDEP did work through ITRC, and they released a vapor intrusion toolkit recently, I believe in January of this year. So we commented on that as a department. It's a good resource if people want to check that out. We're going to go through it and see if there is information that we can incorporate into our guidance. obviously ITRC is kind of, not based on the MCP, but there are technical approaches that could be useful to incorporate into our guidance. So that's one of the reasons too we wanted to take a look at updating our guidance. And then, so as Millie talked about, kind of our thought process here is to form some sort of focus work group. And we're open to comments and feedback on this issue. We were throwing out, members, representatives from different groups. We were thinking the advisory committee, folks from the LSPA and possibly from NIOP. Obviously, waste site cleanup staff, Boston and regional staff. We would like to get people involved. Possible our thought process was maybe 2 representatives from different groups. And those organizations would choose their representatives, and they could obviously work through those 2 people, but kind of a focus group interacting with the DEP staff and updating this document. We're looking to try to cover different areas of vapor intrusion guidance. Obviously, there's a lot of different areas, general investigation, risk assessment, risk characterization, mitigation, the legal side of things, and public involvement. So we ideally have volunteers, to kind of cover different aspects of that guidance document. And then, we're thinking, this may be a 12-month to 18-month commitment. So we are looking for people that are committed to that time frame. We're looking for them to have the availability and the experience and the expertise. And, again, this is all kind of a new approach we're seeing, whether it would be a hybrid or virtual or in-person meetings, that we can kind of discuss. I mean, I think sometimes in-person meetings you can get more done. Virtual or hybrid obviously is easier to attend. So there's benefits in both ways, but so that is kind of our thought process in updating this VI guidance. I'm happy to answer any questions, but please, if you do have thoughts or feedbacks on that, send them to me and Millie, and happy to get your input on forming that kind of focus group for that document.
Thank you, Brian. Much appreciated. Your comments certainly welcome. We want to get it right. And so, we'll test drive a tweener approach with John's 2 documents, AEPMM and the newly renamed VPA-GPH document, kind of like a little bit of a rollout, what to expect, and then just public comment. But this one might actually have a little bit more interaction in terms of what we set out to do, how the science has changed, and what areas are still good enough to keep them. So we understand the document is not broken. It's still usable. We encourage you to use it, and we just simply want to optimize it using potentially national data from ITRC, and then obviously your experience and the MCP experience. So thank you. So with that, we're going to conclude with a short presentation from our experts at the experts at New England Wildlife Centers. Without further ado, I'd like to bring Zach and Dr. Patel to the forum. And thank you for providing us with this presentation, which resonates, never mind if there's an ER spill response act going on and we have injured species, but also a resource for potential at the end of the back end after all said and done with restoration. So it represents the full cycle of life. So with that, Zach and Dr. Patel.
Thank you so much, Millie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Zach. I'm here with Dr. Patel Priya, our Chief Wildlife Medical Director, and we are here from the New England Wildlife Centers. We're going to jump in. I know we have 11 minutes on the clock, so we can keep it to that for sure. But I just want to say thank you for all of the good work you do to protect the natural environment and people and animals of Massachusetts. And just a really heartfelt thank you to Millie and Kathy for as we work to build up our programs in terms of petroleum response and wildlife response, being so kind and gracious and bringing us into the fold, into forums like this, because I was getting nightmares about trying to work out fixed equations back in grad school. Listening to you guys, it's always a great learning experience for us to be here and hear about the other side and monitoring and prevention as well. We tend to be a little long-winded, so we're going to go through the slides pretty quick here, and we'll kind of get to the meat of the presentation. For those of you who don't know us, we are the New England Wildlife Centers. We run two hospitals here in Massachusetts, one in Weymouth, which is sort of our main location. And then we have the Cape Wildlife Center out in Barnstable. Both are wildlife veterinary hospitals, high volume. And because we're short on time today, I'll say this instead of going through the whole program, we're open to the public. We would love any of you who are interested or want to learn about the work or the natural history, please come see us. We'd love to host you in person and kind of show you, the back end of our operation as well. So we can jump to the next slide. So we're located about 60 miles apart. You can see we're very coastal, which is sort of the onus for us. Starting the petroleum response program at the wildlife centers, we were just dealing with a lot of not only aquatic and pelagic birds, but we were seeing a lot of the small and mystery spills. And truthfully, in Massachusetts, not finding a lot of other resources that were capable or willing to step up and help with the rehab portion. And so we can go to the next slide. And it's kind of where we come in. And we'll talk about capabilities in a minute and how we sort of see ourselves fitting in and our, again, as the new kids in the block, sort of where our bigger goals are. But this is our mission. We're trying to be kind to everyone, whether that's people that bring in the animals, whether it's students, whether it's advisors and legislators, whether it's interns, whoever we can bring into the operation, show them the value of wildlife, show them the challenges they face, show them what response looks like. We are all for that. So we always will have students with us in anything we're doing. So you can jump to the next slide. And keep going. There's some cool pictures of some of our recent patients. We will treat anything from foxes and turtles to eagles, about 225 species total here in Massachusetts. So anything you would walk out and see in your backyard that's living wild, if it's sick, if it's injured, if it gets orphaned, we will take them in and provide not just rehabilitative care, but actual veterinary care. We have 6 veterinarians on staff, and so we're always working to stay on the cutting edge of things, trying to improve our treatments, doing everything we can to limit natural resource injury and get these guys back out to the wild. So we can jump to the next one. And just really quickly, in addition to the wildlife hospital, we also run a for-profit practice, or it helps us stay in business as a nonprofit. It's called the Odd Pet Vet. So in addition, we'll see about another 200 species of really anything but a dog or a cat. It can be, a hedgehog to a 100-pound tortoise to a lion at a zoo. And so we work with some of Boston's oldest nonprofits, Museum of Science, ICA, a few other partners. Anybody who has a collection of animals will go in and offer veterinary care with the idea that we're trying to buoy up other nonprofits that may not have the resources to afford outright commercial prices. So we can go ahead and keep going. And one more, we'll keep going just to keep down on time here. Okay, so quickly mentioned, we see about 220 different species. Patients are big, they're small. The summer and spring are our busiest seasons. But here in Massachusetts, because of our really diverse ecology and really diverse natural environments, and sometimes how closely and densely packed our natural environments are to each other, we host an incredible amount of species in the coastal, within a few miles of the coast, I should say. So when we see petroleum spills, whether it's cooking oil that affect a bunch of seagulls and other animals, or whether it's a true oil spill, it is not always just the classic sea ducks and seabirds that you're seeing out there. We're also seeing mammals affected. We're also seeing waterfowl affected. We're seeing coastal scavengers affected. And so we're really lucky to live in such an amazing place. But with that comes some challenges that maybe other parts of the country aren't necessarily facing. So we can go ahead. And just quickly here, I've been through most of this, but you'll see these are our peaks. And the reason we display this is to show, one, we're going into busy season shortly. So we tend to be really, really front loaded into like April through August is when we see the majority of our patients. We'll have up to, probably 300 patients between the two hospitals on site. And it's 300 going cases at a time. And the reason we show this here is obviously the timing of a spill or the timing of a natural disaster makes a huge difference. right? In terms of the activity of the animals, the types of species you're seeing, what you can expect in terms of behaviors and natural history. And so when we go into response, we're always not only thinking about the geospatial impact of the spill, but also who's here right now, who's migrating through, are they raising their young, are they foraging for certain food sources. So there's a lot of background that goes into it. But we're always sort of planning for the worst case scenario, which would be like a peak summer, I think, spill for wildlife. So we can go ahead. And we can skip through this one too. Okay. So quickly, I know we're here to talk about capabilities. And again, being short on time, I want to hand it over to Dr. Patel. I just want to say we're super grateful to MassDEP. They have really been able to help us kickstart this program. It was a real need. It's a vacuum that exists in Massachusetts. Currently, we're the only ones with the staff that's licensed and trained that can actually go out after the migratory birds and other animals. Through 2 of the MOSPRA grants, we have really been able to hit the ground running, train up our staff, design training programs for first responders, and design training programs for sort of natural resource officers, harbor masters, anyone who is local to an area where a spill might happen that intersects with wildlife. And so we can really leverage that local knowledge. If they're the first ones on scene, they can sort of at least have a good understanding of how to start the response process when it comes to wildlife and wildlife health, but also know that we're a resource and sort of, the quicker you can respond, the less mortality you're going to see in a lot of these cases. So I won't go through the whole 2 grants, but it's been 3 individual training programs at this point, some of which are hands-on, some of which are classroom-based. We've got oil spill response kits available to any town that needs them. I think we have about 40 or 50 on site that has everything inside, including medical supplies, to hit the ground running, facilitate a response. The last grant helped us buy a bunch of materials, including washing stations and oil containment tanks. So we're really working to build up our capacity. And our goal is by the end of this coming year, by the end of 2026, we will actually have an outfitted, dedicated oil spill response building at our Cape Hospital that would truly become a first of its kind oil spill response hospital. So with that, I think I have talked enough. I'm going to turn it over to Priya now, and she can kind of take you through, what the response looks like for us.
Thank you so much. So we'll breeze through this, but we conducted our first, with the second grant, we received in-person training, and you can skip to the next slide just to show some of the activities that everyone participated in. Quickly, this is what our response kits look like, and all of the supplies included needed to go out and capture birds safely for the animal and for yourself. So all the PPE required, and first aid needed to clear the airways, clear the eyes of the bird, etc. So we can skip to the next slide. So our first part of the course is a virtual or in-person lecture series, including all of these topics, and we would very much like all of you guys to join us when we continue this partnership and take the course and learn about all the ins and outs of preparedness, including learning natural history, the field work we see from the perspective of the rehabbers, all this health and safety, and the key component, the rehabilitation process. You can go to the next slide. The rehabilitation process is much more intricate than people actually realize. Washing birds is really hard. Keeping feather quality at pristine conditions is one of the hardest things to do. And so part of the lab goes through, you can play the video. There might not be sound, which is fine. I can talk through it.
I just wanted you to watch me dissolve.
think if you, yeah, perfect. Sorry about that. You can watch all our videos if you follow us on Instagram. But washing feathers entails getting exact percentages of the Dawn concentrations to make sure we're getting all of the contaminant off without destroying the feather quality. And the feather quality helps maintain the thermal regulation for the birds. And so what we end up doing all these tests to see what concentrations of Dawn and how many washes needed to wash each bird. It actually can take up to an hour per bird to wash, rinse, and dry them. And so when you have an oil spill with 50 to 100 birds, that's several days, including 12 hours a day of washing. And we can skip to the next slide. And we can skip past this. This is just one of our labs that we were able to perform under the grant, where we had students wash cadavers to sort of simulate the washing process and the fatigue that goes in, not only for the participants, but also the stress on the animals as well. Unfortunately, we have to wash all the patients awake because if they were anesthetized, it would drop their body temperature too low. And we can skip past this video onto the next slide too. And then rinsing is a really important process. We use a high power hot water rinse to realign the hooks and barbules feather structure to help maintain that waterproofing capability. And we can move to the next slide. And this was the most recent oil spill. We were involved in the Muddy River oil spill in Boston at the end of last year. And because we had all the kits in hand, we were able to respond immediately. And we were able to capture, I think, just about 50 oiled birds, and it was heating oil type 3, so very caustic to the birds, and it ended up releasing, I think, 43 of the birds. You don't have to play the videos. There's a link to our Instagram at the end if anybody would like to watch them afterwards. And this is our ongoing campaign that Zach mentioned to create this disaster relief oil spill response building. We are still in the funding area. And Zach, if you wanted to say a last few minute words on this.
Yeah, so we're super excited about this. Again, sort of born out of a need rather than rather than something we were planning on doing. With the emergence of more infectious diseases, things like bird flu, Wellfleet Bay virus, we were not only seeing that when there is a spill event or a natural disaster event, you need a large, square footage capacity to care for all these animals. But now on top of that, there's also the need for testing, for isolation, for data gathering, to protect public health. And unfortunately, in one of the responses we did, long story, we got 50 seagulls covered in cooking oil. All 50 tested positive for bird flu. Right. And so all of a sudden you have a population that is in critical condition, needs specialized care, and then you can't put them anywhere near your other patients because you run the risk of spreading it to either animals or in some cases people. So we went to the drawing board knowing that we really are passionate about this work, and oil spill response is something we really want to be a part of going forward. And we did realize we don't just need to reorganize, we need a whole building. And so this building is slated, hopefully, to break ground this year. We're about $500,000 short, as it seems like the cost keeps going up as materials get more expensive. But we're more than halfway there. It will have specialized washing bays. It has isolation rooms. It has warming, capabilities for post-wash birds. It has oil spill or oil containment for the effluent and water that's coming off the birds, floor drains, and it's well isolated from other buildings. And so the idea behind this is not only does it serve the capacity to care for birds during a spill, we're thinking probably in the neighborhood of about 100 birds we could take on site in this building, but it is really a training ground too. And so it's an area that even in between responses that we can bring anyone who's interested into to show them the process, to train them up so that, when the next event comes, we have more and more people in the community ready to help respond. I think that will do it. I appreciate the patience.
Well,
I'm sorry we went over there.
No, we are so ever grateful. Our program clearly, it's all about protecting human health and the environment, and especially our ecological population. Otherwise, we just don't have the planet the way that it was given to us, and therefore, we need to leave things in a better place. So we are so very grateful. For us, it's super important that we continue to partner and work through all of the amazing challenges that often come with potential, like you stated, bird flu season and, just threats to public health and the ecological population and humans as well. So you are one of our partners. We're ever grateful. We thank you for providing this presentation, and we look forward to having you attend our May meeting and just to meet some of the folks. So thank you, Dr. Patel. Thank you so much, Zach. It's always a pleasure and honor to work with you directly.
Thank
so
you.
This will conclude the meeting. I think, Amita, we wanted to advance. Next slide, please. We are, as we look out our windows and we see so much snow and clearly a challenge for so many communities. MassDEP is here to say that, please look into our website. I know some communities are experiencing challenges with what to do with the snow, working through the conservation commissions. There's snow disposal guidance available out there, predicated on CONSCOM approval to dispose of snow in the rivers. And again, these are very difficult times for so many people. So thank you again for spending time with us as we continue to move forward with critical issues that make our program advance the way we want to advance it and see a better environment for all of us. We have been able to secure a conference room for the 5/21/2026 meeting in Boston. Looking at a hybrid, I believe. So that's going to be an opportunity again for those that can attend in person, but those that can't, being able to tie in by way of virtual connection. So again, thank you very much to everybody, and more to come in more communication. Again, thank you to our advisors and everybody who provided so great, thoughtful commentary. We look forward to working with you now and always. Have a great day. Stay safe. Stay warm. We'll see ya.